The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Man from Lang. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are continuing with our review of the player cards in the Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion. This time around, we're taking a look at the Mystic/Survivor cards. There are 4 of them. Talisman of Protection Level 0, Earthly Serenity Level 1, Earthly Serenity Level 4, and Enchanted Bow Level 2. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Just a quick reminder of how we rate cards here on The Whisper in Darkness. The best of the best get an Elder Sign, while the worst of the worst get an Auto-Fail, and the cards in between get a +1, 0, or Elder Thing respectively. Cards that you build around or are good in one particular investigator get a Bless token, while cards that we believe are destined to end up on the optional list of taboos or that are just bad for the game get a Curse token. Before I get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. The Arkham Horror LCG community is amazing, and these people have gone above and beyond to bring you content like these player card reviews. Speaking of amazing members of the community, special thanks to Bradley Ward, the latest patron to Embrace the Darkness. Thank you very much, Bradley, for your support. It is greatly appreciated. I hope that you draw nothing but Elder Signs from the Chaos Bag as you make your way through scenarios. Support from patrons like Bradley lets me do one of my favorite things here on the channel, and that is giveaways. I will be giving away a copy of the new Machinations of Time scenario here in the next couple days, so stay tuned for that. If you'd like to support the channel and see your name on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Special thanks to Cole Monroe Chitty for the fantastic art that graces the channel, Nicole Fiscus for the new Whisper in Darkness logo that graces the podcast, and Nate Lost in Time and Space for the intro as well as the overlays. Thank you very much. I couldn't do it without you. Without further ado, let's get started. We are back with our review of the player cards in the Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion. This time around, we're taking a look at the Mystic and Survivor cards. We're going to start off with Talisman of Protection, 2-cost asset with a willpower skill icon, item, and charm traits. Fast, play only during your turn. Play Talisman of Protection under the control of any investigator at your location. As a response, when you are assigned damage and or horror that would defeat you, discard Talisman of Protection, cancel up to 2 of that damage and or horror, and it takes up an arcane slot. We have seen this type of effect before on cards like St. Hubert's Key and Perseverance that can save you if you are in danger of being defeated. This one is fast, which is nice if you think you are perhaps going to take an attack or retaliate. You can put this down and survive. What do you guys think about this one?
This is great if you're playing Dragon Pole as well. And Matt, you had mentioned that just before we started recording. Yeah, I do kind of wish I had put this in my Lily deck, but I wouldn't have drawn it anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, I mean, this is a pretty solid effect. You know, being able to live is good.
Yeah, one thing to note about it is that it does say cancel up to 2 of that damage or horror. So you're going to feel terrible when you take 1 single damage, and then you have to like lose your whole Talisman of Protection just to stay alive. That's going to make you feel terrible. I think this card is, for level 0 card, it's okay. It's kind of fillerish. It kind of takes the same role as like Leather Coat, to be honest, but it is a little more expensive than Leather Coat, but it's fast. And you can help out your friends. So that part's nice.
It is something that is not a triad spell in an arcane slot. So I will give it kudos for that, because I complained about that during our Mystic review.
So what's really weird is that it's a charm, which are supposed to be non-magical, like little charms, but yet it takes up an arcane slot.
Yeah, I think this is one of the rare charms that actually doesn't take an accessory slot.
That's weird, because like the Precious Mementos, those take up an accessory slot in their charms. This one is a charm, a non-magical charm that takes up a spell slot. Typo? Maybe.
I think it takes up an arcane slot because of Calvin, to be honest. Because Calvin wants his accessory slot for something else. So he can take this, which provides him with another layer of protection. I kind of like Perseverance more because it has better icons and it heals more than this one. But you are sort of, with Perseverance, it is, while it heals twice as much damage or horror, you can't save your friends with it either. It's limited to you. So sort of similar effects, but slightly different implementations of those effects. I guess really the only issue I have with this, I mean, I think it's a fine card, is that really this doesn't do anything until you are defeated. And if you're not in danger of being defeated, then this is basically a willpower skill icon.
Yeah.
And
or it helps your dragon pull.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not super excited about this one, but I think it does have a place if you're looking for. I mean, Calvin is the obvious one who's concerned about being defeated. You could play this in Daniela as well, but you'd be giving up one of those prized survivor slots since she only has 5.
Although with Daniela at 0 XP, it's probably fine. She can swap him out for Peter Sylvester later.
Yeah, or the upgraded perseverance or whatever effect she needs. I mean, it's not the worst like one of in Daniela, because if you're taking lucky and then you're taking live and learn, you have 1 slot, and it's like this isn't the worst thing you can spend that 1 slot on.
That's
Sure,
true.
maybe
Yeah.
you take something else, but again, if you're trying to proactively take attacks, then this is pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think for 0 XP and fast, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it cost an action, this would be
Yeah,
borderline
it's like-
unplayable.
Then you might as well play like Leather Coat or
Yeah, exactly. Play
or the
something
Teddy
that you
Bear.
can proactively soak with.
How would we rate this one?
I'm going to give this a 0. I have a hard time giving cards that are fast that have a decent effect anything below a 0.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't cost an action. It's a decent effect. It's good in Dragon Pull decks, because Dragon Pull decks generally don't do things with their spell slots unless it's investigating. So maybe you play Shriveling, maybe you have Talisman. Talisman goes away, you're fine with it too, so I think it's fine. It's not for every deck, but I think in the decks you play it in, it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's 0 XP. Like it goes well with the Dragon Pole, as we were talking about, which I think is probably the real reason why it has a arcane slot, is so it like have that synergy at level 0 for Lily. I think it's also pretty decent at Bob Jenkins because you can give it to a friend, and he has ways of reducing the cost of items, like his signature. Yeah, for example. Yeah, I think it's very decent. It's a fine card. I'll give it a 0.
I will give it a 0 as well. I don't know how often I will play this card, to be honest.
What is this, Nate? Is this a healing effect that he's rating more than a tentacle?
I don't think this qualifies as a healing effect per se. I find that based on my Perseverance is a card that I haven't played very much. I don't think I'd play this card very much. I have played St. Hubert's Key quite a bit, which has a similar effect to this, but I often find that if I'm in a position where I have to sack the key to keep myself alive, something terrible has happened. And St. Hubert's Key is particularly bad for this, because while you can sack it to save yourself, you're then basically digging your own grave, because you were losing the icons it was giving, or the skill boosts that it was giving you. So it's going to be that much harder to actually dig yourself out of that hole. And so there have been a few occasions where I've sacked the key, survived whatever was going to kill me the first time around, and then it's looped back around and got me in the end. So I don't know if this is necessarily enough to save you. I think it'd feel pretty bad if you drop this on the table and then you end up, say, blowing a Rotting Remains, taking 3 horror, and it kills you anyway. That would be really annoying. But, yeah, I don't tend to play these types of effects very often, but I can appreciate their value in investigators like Calvin or possibly Daniela, who are sort of courting death at every turn. And so having an ability that enables you to survive that and perhaps recover or get down some more soak or heal if that's what you want to do, then this has its place.
It
How do
is
you feel
also a cancel card for Diana Stanley.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If you need this
if you-
for some reason.
Yeah, if you need it for some reason. Yeah, it's not a very proactive cancel.
Hmm.
How do you guys feel about this compared to bandages?
I think I like bandages more. One,
Okay.
because bandages heals allies,
Oh, true.
and you can trickle it.
Mhm.
You know, you can like heal one damage from an ally, you can heal a damage from a friend, and then you can heal a damage from yourself.
Okay.
Whereas this is like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. This
There it
saves
is.
me. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that this can save another investigator at your location. So if the campaign has turned against you and there's somebody who's on the ropes, then this isn't a bad option. And because it's a level 0 card, there are survivors like Wendy who could say pick up adaptable and pick this up late campaign rather than starting off with it. So it's like, okay, I don't need this now, but oh damn, Roland's in trouble. He's taken too much trauma. So I'll pick up Talisman of Protection and we'll buddy up. And you can't play this during the Mythos phase, obviously, which would be quite good to save you against those treacheries, because if it was fast, you could say, oh, I've got a Rotting Remains test. I play this during the free triggered ability window in the test, so I'm protecting myself in case I fail. This, you've got to be paying a little bit more attention to get this down at the right time. But certainly if you were taking on an enemy with Retaliate or something, and you're like, well, I'm not too sure, if he retaliates, I might die, you could drop this down during the fight and provides you a little bit of protection there. Or, same with Alert, Retaliate or Alert protection. So there are a few tricks that you can pull with this one. The next card is Earthly Serenity. This is a 2-cost asset that costs 1 experience point. There is a 4 XP version as well that we will look at in a moment. It has a willpower skill icon. The spell trait uses 4 charges. As an action, you can test willpower 1. For each point you succeed by, you may spend 1 charge to heal 1 damage or 1 horror from an investigator at your location. If you succeed by 0, lose 1 resource, and it takes up an arcane slot. What do you guys think about Earthly Serenity? The art is good, for sure.
It feels like Dream Eater's art to me, almost.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Those are like the MAGA birds or something.
Yeah. I'd say the art is the only redeeming quality of this card.
You think so? I don't know.
I don't think this is very good. Because it's action-intensive healing.
It is action intensive. Like that's going to be the case with all healing. It's all slow. It's all.
What are you talking about? We were talking about the mementos. The mementos are in the game. Those are action.
Yeah, but that's soak. Yeah, but that's soak. That's soak with healing. That's different.
That's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
This is more first aid territory.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But that being said, if you're playing like a 5 willpower mystic, or you're playing Patrice or something, you succeed by 2. This is healing 2 damage or 2 horror or some combination thereof.
Yeah.
Which is like the fact that it does it in chunks, I think, is what makes this somewhat playable. Because
it's not,
especially in Edge of the Earth, you're incentivized to take the brunt of the damage yourself so that you can save the expedition crew. Maybe you're playing allies you want to save, so you're more likely to take more damage in that campaign. So being able to make one test, like one giant test, I succeed by like 3 or 4. I use all the charges at once to heal my Guardian 4 damage, and now they can live, and now they can survive and kill whatever enemy we need them to kill.
Mm-hmm.
Or, something along those lines. That being said, if you're using it to heal 1 horror, like a first aid kit, holy, this is terrible.
Although it's the bag that tells you how much you heal.
True, but at least in Mystic, you have tons of tools to push your willpower up to like 5, 6.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if you only succeed by like 2, that is okay. It's more than likely going to save whoever you were trying to save.
I guess when you put it that way, the fact that you can burst heal, like you heal in chunks. Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's just on the surface, I'm just like, it's still kind of action intensive.
It is. It's not great, but like comparing it to first aid and the other healing cards.
There you go.
Like,
okay, if
sure.
the bar is first aid, then this is pretty good.
If the bar is the rest of the card pool, not so much.
Yeah.
On the plus side, it does have the spell trait, which synergizes with a god-awful amount of cards at this point. I know in earlier reviews I'd go through the process of listing them all, but at this point there's just too many. Theoretically, you can heal 4 damage and or 4 horror with 1 action, which is good. I've seen a lot of people talking about using this card for the big mega heal. So you play this, you drain it all in one action. I don't know many circumstances when you would need to heal 4 or 4. That seems like a lot, but
the fact that you can spread it out. So when you're in a multiplayer game and everyone's getting beaten up by the encounter deck, because remember, 4 players, 4 times in theory the amount of damage and horror that is hitting the table. You could burst heal with this, and you can get your multiple investigators because there's more damage out there, damage and horror out there to heal. So you can definitely make use of that in that regard. It's not bad. You can top people off.
On the downside, this really runs into the whole medical text problem. Not only is it a healing card, which is a strike against it, it's a healing card that requires an action to play, it requires an action to trigger, it requires you pass a skill test, which, of course, can fail. The nice thing is you don't spend the charges until you succeed, so it's not costing you anything there.
That's true.
But it does require a skill test, which has a tendency to fail, and to top it all off, if you don't succeed by at least 1, it penalizes you. So it's got all of these downsides working against it. And talking about the mega heal for a second, I think even if you are playing a 5 willpower mystic, assuming most of the tokens in the bag, your average is going to be about a -2. That means you're going to be at a 3. So the most you're going to get on a typical heal is about 2. So that means you're going to have to commit additional cards and or resources to pull this mega heal off. And I don't really like that. I feel like I'm already being punished in a way for playing this healing card, and the fact that I have to commit even more to just pull off this big heal just doesn't feel good to me.
That being said, if you're in a lull in the action, committing guts, and particularly level 2 guts, to proactively card draw, that's not bad. There might be no enemies on the board for you to shrivel, so if you use this to proactively get yourself some card draw with guts, there's something to be said about that. I guess if the bar is healing words and clarity of mind, then this is kind of aces both of them.
In Carolyn, it's nice because you can spread it around and give multiple people resources.
That's true. I feel like I wish the difficulty was 0, though. I don't see why it's 1. I think I know why it's 1.
We know why it's 1 because of the following card.
Yeah, because of the next card. Yeah.
So how would we rate Earthly Serenity?
I'm going to give it an elder thing with the asterisk that it has a niche.
Okay. Yeah, not enough of a niche for a blessed token because it's not particularly great.
You don't build a deck around it or anything like that. But if you need a giant burst heal and you're able to pass that willpower test handily, go for it. Otherwise, this card's not good.
Yeah, I'd say elder thing as well. With the added context that other action-intensive single-point healing is tentacle territory. Things like medical techs and first aid level 0 and healing words and clarity of mind. If those are all tentacles, I'd say this is an elder thing. Yeah, I think there might be some sort of outside, unusual deck build where you want to be taking tests. I'm thinking maybe something involving Jacqueline Fine or especially Father Mateo, where you want to token dive for particular tokens. The more tests Father Mateo takes, the more elder signs he draws. Unless you're Nate, then you just draw. Then you don't. So I'd give this an elder thing.
I could see this being okay if you're playing a heavy bless deck, where the odds of drawing some of those blessings would help you really juice the test and get a a lot of healing out of it. I'm kind of torn on this one. It's definitely not a tentacle. Elder Thing seems appropriate. Maybe even a 0. But yeah, that seems like a stretch. So I'm going to end up on Elder Thing. It just has too many things I don't like. I don't like taking tests to heal. I don't like taking extra actions to heal. I mean, given the fact that Precious Memento is also a survivor card that you could take, that's what I'd be reaching for before this one. So yeah, not very excited about this one. But I have not played the Edge of the Earth campaign yet, so if you are taking a lot of extra damage and horror yourself to protect your expedition crew, then something like this might come in handy. That brings us to Earthly Serenity level 4, 2 cost asset, 2 willpower skill icon spell trait. This one has 6 charges. As an action, you can test willpower 0 for each point you succeed by. You may spend 1 charge to heal 1 damage or 1 horror from an investigator at your location. If you succeed by 0, lose 2 resources, and it takes up an ally slot.
You mean an arcane slot?
Arcane. What did I say?
Ally. I was like,
Ally
whoa,
slot?
wait.
Man, it's early. I haven't had my coffee. Yeah,
So-
this has many of the same issues as the other one. I don't know if I'd ever pay 4 XP for this,
Oh God, no.
to be honest.
You're paying 3 additional XP for 2 charges, and that's it. I mean, yeah, you effectively get +1 to the test, but you could spend that 3 XP on getting +1 to your willpower altogether for all your willpower tests.
Yeah, exactly.
Why stop it? You know,
That's
like
how I
why
feel
upgrade? Yeah.
It's like
Why
there's
upgrade?
there's never an instance in the game where you would ever need to heal more than 4.
Yeah, and even if there was, you could have spent that 3 XP on other cards, you
On
know,
soak.
to either on like soak and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, would this have been worth it if it was a lightning bolt instead of an action?
Ooh, yes, for 4 XP. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, okay. Because then it's an emergency heal. Like, oh my god, you know. Because often enough, when you need healing, you also need actions too, because you're getting swarmed or,
Yep.
you know, you've been clobbered by the encounter deck. And yeah, if it was a lightning bolt, yeah, I could see upgrading.
Yeah, it feels to me as though if you like effects like Earthly Serenity level 1, that is fine. That will do what you need it to do. You do not need to spend 4 XP to gain 2 extra charges. If you are in search of other charges, you could even spend that 3 XP on Winds of Power or Recharge or any of those effects, and those are nice because you can use those charges on any of your assets. So if you're playing Shriveling or whatever, you can use those cards on those to boost the charges on that if you don't need them here. So while I was willing to give the other one an Elder Thing, this one's getting a tentacle from me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like some sort of very niche idea where it's worth spending two resources to get 6 charges to use those charges on other things. But that's pretty niche, and it's kind of outside the boundaries of this review. It's like now you're using it as not for the intended purpose. You're using it as a charge battery,
A
for something
vessel,
else.
yeah. But
Yeah,
like the issue is that deck doesn't exist.
Yeah,
maybe like there might be an Akachi deck that can do it, but you know what? That now we're getting to the realm of like theory. But the card as presented, tentacle. Yeah.
I mean, I have played an Akachi deck that used Torrent of Power and Decorated Skull
There you go.
to burn charges off the skull to power Torrent of Power. And I think there could be a really fun, interesting deck there one day, but I don't think that there's just not enough effects yet that use charges for something other than charging the spell they're on. If we get some cards that manipulate charges in that way, then I could see maybe this creeping up a little bit, because Akachi, this thing has 7 charges, which is a lot. If we get an effect that says like move charges around or spend charges to, you know, do something else, then
Does Eldritch Sophist let you move charges around?
It does, yeah.
it does.
Okay.
But Akachi
That's-
can't take
that's pretty
that
niche.
card.
Yeah.
So
There might be some sort of weird niche strategy. I'm thinking like, oh god, this is really niche. All right, get ready, guys. Jim Culver, Seal of the Seventh Sign, Earthly Serenity, Eldritch Sophist.
Okay, that you have figured it out.
Yep, I did it. I did it.
You
did it.
you have
Okay.
busted Earthly Serenity level 4.
All right, so
That
if
is
you're
a.
playing,
I
if
admit
you're
that is a
playing
deck I've
Jim,
considered
you're
playing.
playing Eldritch Sophist. You've spent 5 experience on Seal the Elder Sign, and then you've spent another 4 on Earthly. Okay, you got it.
Or you can just play Winds of Power.
Or you could do that.
Or you can just play Winds of Power.
It's
There
like
you go.
the whole issue with that combo is that how many resources does that cost again?
A lot. But you seal the tentacle. Nate, this is what you need to play.
Dude, you know what would happen? I would draw
You'd still
minus
somehow
5.
manage.
I would draw
You'd
nothing
st-
but -5.
Yeah, I just
still-
wait for that game when Nate and Vase seal the tentacle, and then somehow they draw another tentacle, and are just like, how did this happen?
Where did this come from? And it's because Vase accidentally hit like Control C in TTS to copy
Yep.
the.
Yeah.
And at that point, the Chaos Bag is just winking at you. It's just like, thought you'd get away without it, eh? That brings us to Enchanted Bow, 3-cost asset that costs 2 experience points. Willpower and agility skill icons, spell, blessed, weapon, and ranged traits. Uses 3 charges. As an action, you may exhaust the Enchanted Bow to fight. You must use either willpower or agility instead of combat, and get +1 skill value for this attack. This attack deals +1 damage. As an additional cost to initiate this ability, you may spend 1 charge to have this attack target a non-elite enemy at a connecting location. If you do, ignore the aloof and retaliate keywords for this attack. This one takes up both hand slots and an arcane slot. I believe that's the only card in the game that currently does this. I find it really ironic when I read this card how they basically took what Guardians have been attempting to do for several cycles with marksmanship and the Springfield, and there's one I'm missing at the telescopic sight,
Yeah.
and basically just solved the problem with one card.
May. Just by saying May.
They solved all of that. Like, here's the weapon that everybody has been asking for. A weapon that can target enemies at connecting locations. Simple, easily done. We don't need to mess around with Springfields and telescopic sights and marksmanship and all that. Here it is, all in one card. I mean, this is pretty good, man. The fact that it's +1 damage and +1 combat. You don't actually have to spend charges to get that. You get it automatically. Again, this does have the whole bow issue, but they solve it slightly differently in this case, whereas the ornate bow has 1 ammo. You spend that ammo and then have to take an action to reload it. This one, you simply exhaust the enchanted bow. So barring effects like, I believe Ashcan Pete might be the only one readily available to survivors where you can ready the bow. That's and we haven't seen that effect very often. I think there's probably a pretty good reason why, because we have a lot of these cards that you have to exhaust or do something to prevent you from abusing them, and Ashcan is really the only card that allows you to do that. Has 3 charges, and if you want to target enemies at a connecting location, you've got that option, which is great. And it is also worth noting that this works with True Magic. So if you don't want to spend 2 hand slots and an arcane slot, you can just keep the Enchanted Bow in your hand and use True Magic to trigger it. What do you guys think about this one?
I'll admit, I have to credit in our comments of the our part 3 of the Mystic Card review, Batafel in the comments pointed out this exact bit about True Magic and Enchanted Bow, and bravo, good job. I like that. Because True Magic works really well with very situational effects, of which this is one. So, Nate, get to it. Build the deck.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like Conjure Bow. If you've ever played Skyrim, it's like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if you're playing this weapon on its own, though, that's tough, I feel, because unless you're using that ability to good effect, this is kind of a subpar weapon that ends up taking 3 slots.
Yeah. That being said, it is a spell.
It is. It has all the keywords.
Yes. it has the spell keyword, so you can find it, and you can. I know there's other things you can do, like you can things that boost your tests on spells, and you can find it with your Arcane Initiate, and you can play it for cheaper with your Uncage the Soul. So this is not a replacement for Shriveling, I'd say, but it's got enough utility to be interesting. And if you're not the primary fighter, if you're like the backup fighter, like I think, and you're not using your hands for anything else, which Mystics don't really need their hands for very much. I think there's something to be said here. Yeah, it is kind of a subpar weapon, but then again, it's also Mystic and Survivor, which don't really have the best weapons.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the utility is like the fact that you can shoot an enemy at a distance.
Yeah.
Kill off a whippoorwill before you enter a location or
Exactly.
whatever. Like that ability can be really useful in certain scenarios, but
Yeah.
I feel like barring that, survivors have Derringer now from the Stellar
Derringer is
Cluster.
very good. Yeah.
So it's like,
very good.
Most survivors that can take the Derringer are pretty competent with it. So
Mhm.
there's that, and then Mystics have their spells.
Yeah,
So
for
it's
up
like
close personal fighting. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have ritual candles as well. So like if you really wanted to get an extra buff, you could do that. So yeah, I just find it a bit difficult to include, barring the situations where I'm able to kill the enemies from a distance.
I've played the Ornate Bow in a really young deck, and when I look at this card, now this one doesn't do as much damage as the Ornate Bow does, so I don't think it's a direct replacement. But I do kind of like this in Rita simply because if you were playing the Ornate Bow anyway, you were giving up both your hand slots, so that's not an issue. The Arcane slot, she doesn't care about Arcane slots, so the slot cost on this card is basically the same as the Ornate Bow for her. I kind of like her ability, with this in combination with her ability to say, okay, she evades the hunter, uses her free trigger, her ability to move to another location and then snipes it from afar is kind of interesting. It's just it just doesn't do as much damage, but I mean, she's hitting at 6 with this.
Yeah.
Which is pretty decent. I think I can't remember the Ornate Bow's text offhand. I think that gives you a bigger bonus.
+2, yeah.
+2, yes. So slightly better bonus, but when you're already hitting at 6 or 7, that's pretty good most of the time.
Well, one thing I will say about this is I don't think Daniela likes this, and I don't think Norman likes this either.
No.
It seems like another holdover from the Dream Eaters, kind of like Earthly Serenity.
But yeah, I don't know. It's an awkward card
Uh-huh.
because I feel like in Rita, when you play the bow, you want to kill 3 health enemies with it.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like that. Yeah. Like that threshold now is so pervasive in the game's design that dealing 3 damage is like almost necessary for a weapon. And it's like with Rita, yeah, sure, you could shoot something and then evade it and use a reaction ability, but why wouldn't you just shoot it? With the Ornate Bow, spend the extra experience, and then, yeah, sure, you may not use the arcane slot anyway, but like, you get to deal extra damage, which is more important.
I think the real trouble with this is that you have to exhaust it, and then you're stuck at 2 damage. You do 2 damage, and that's all the damage you get to do for the turn, with both your hand slots and a spell slot. So that's kind of the strikes against it. That's why it's like, I feel this is good as like not your primary weapon, but like if you need the sniper move, or if you're playing like say Agnes and you have this and Shriveling on the table because you have like a Seeker and a Rogue and they're doing all the cluing, I could see this working, or if you're like Akachi and you have Mark Harrigan in your party, and you don't really need to do a lot of cluing because you also have like Rex Murphy or something, then it's like, okay, I can see this working. Like you take a utility spell and then you take this as another utility spell, but not so much as like a combat spell.
What about somebody like Ashcan who could ready it?
That's interesting because he kind of gets over the downside. And Ashcan's a survivor, and survivors don't have the best of weapons. Oh, and he has Duke to be the second
supplement
attack.
it.
Yeah, he has Duke to be the second attack, so I could see that working. Yeah.
So you get basically 2 attacks with the bow and 1 with Duke.
Or two with Duke and one
or
with the
two
bow.
with Duke
Yeah.
and one with
Yeah.
the bow. So
Yeah.
that sort of gets
You
over
can also-
the hump.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, then you can go do the whole like, Duke in the jungle with a bow, and you got Duke and Ashcan in the jungle.
So how would we rate this one?
This one's really tough for me. I don't like it very much, to be honest. But it's not bad. I find it to be a little too niche. Dunwich is probably super good because it's cheap. It doesn't cost a lot of experience, so that you can actually get it into your deck in Dunwich, and then it kills all the whippoorwills, which is awesome.
It also kills Wizards of the Order, which are really
true.
annoying to have to go
Yeah.
after. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like in Dunwich, I can see enough
Yeah.
situations where a card like this is really good,
Uh-huh.
but in other campaigns, I have a
Well,
harder time.
there are a couple of campaigns. Which ones am I thinking of? Okay, Circle Undone at the end. You have all those really annoying acolytes who are spawning at distant locations, which are kind of a pain. Like in Before the Black Throne, you really don't have a lot of time to be chasing down acolytes. And granted, they're not going to be on the table for long, so being able to maybe snipe one of those with this might not be bad. I think you run into the same situation in Shattered Aeons, where you again have acolytes spawning at sort of out of the way locations where you might want to not necessarily go to those locations. So being able to snipe them there, and again, Wizard of the Order is an issue in that case. So I think there are some campaigns where this could be useful, but I don't think you've given it a rating though, Nate.
Yeah, it's tough. So my rating would be campaign specific because I do feel like in Dunwich this is probably a +1 because there's enough 2 and 4 health enemies at a distance that this is really a great tool to be defeating. But in campaigns like Innsmouth, where the enemies have 3 health, this might be a little more challenging.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna land on a 0. It's fine. It's not for every investigator that can take it, but I don't think you'll be disappointed. But like Matt said, by the same token, this is not going to be your primary source of damage. This is I think you're going to use this to pick off annoying enemies at a distance.
Exactly.
And then have a shriveling to be able to kill anything in front of you.
Yeah, it does what it does, but not more than what it does. So I'd also give it a 0 for that regard. And also, if you want to be really hilarious, you can combo it with marksmanship because it's ranged, so you can shoot something 2 locations away.
So I've gone back and forth on this one. I think I'm going to give this one a blessed token because I feel as though this is something you're probably going to build around.
Okay.
Due to the slot requirements alone, I don't think this is something you're picking up. Like if it was just 2 hand slots, fine. We've got lots of weapons that do that. But the arcane slot, that's like mystics, that's a big cost for a mystic. Not so much for a survivor, but a big mystic. I do like the whole being able to snipe enemies at a connecting location. I'm glad we finally have a weapon that does that doesn't involve playing 6 other cards in order to make that effect come off. But again, I think I agree with you, Nate. Like there are certain campaigns where that's going to be better than others. I think the biggest issue with this is it doesn't quite do enough damage.
Yeah.
It's like I can live with the +1 skill value. That's fine, I think, because investigators with high agility, you're probably playing this with a 5 willpower or 5 agility investigator who is at 6. So that seems acceptable. And then if you commit a couple cards, you can probably get over whatever hump you need to. But the damage, that is a bigger, or not a bigger issue, but just a more difficult issue to solve for those 2 particular classes because they don't have, easy access to Vicious Blow for the most part. So yeah, I feel like this is one you're going to probably build around, maybe in Ashcan Pete, maybe with, investing in True Magic and trying it out that way. But, yeah, I feel like this could be good, but not without a little bit of work and forethought to go into it. That's going to do it for our look at the Mystic and Survivor cards in the Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion. If you're enjoying this type of content, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Make sure you leave a comment down below to let us know whether you agree or disagree. We do enjoy hearing from you. We've only got one more review to go, and that is the multi-class cards, the triple class cards. Any final thoughts on these Mystic Survivor cards?
We're a little middling overall. Enchanted Bow is interesting, but I just find it difficult to find a home for it. So if you find a home for it, you let me know. I'd be really interested to see.
Yeah, they don't feel like really coherent. Like, it's not like the Rogue Survivor ones that we talked about recently, where they feel very like coherent and they can all go in the same deck. Like this Rogues Gallery here, not so much. I feel like they seem like holdovers from the Dream Eaters.
That's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.